Hey, this is Zac.
And I'm Clint, and we wanted to thank Exo-terra for sponsoring this episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Exo-terra is the industry leader in glass terrarium enclosures, and we are a big fan of getting to see the species we work with both at home and at the university.
We utilize Exo-terra caging here at Metazotics, and in addition to top quality terrariums, Exo-terra offers an array of heating options, lighting, supplements, decor, and truthfully anything needed or wanted when keeping reptiles.
Thank you, Exo-terra, for supporting Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. As always, Zac is here with my good friend Clint. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing great, my man. Doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I've noticed, like, for the past 5 to 10 episodes, I haven't introduced who the guest was for 45 freaking minutes. So we're not going to do that tonight. Tonight's guest is Jessica Hare of Hare Hollow Farms. And we were talking before the episode, and we're going to do things a little different tonight. We're going to talk about, this is going to play heavily to Clint's strengths. We're going to talk about the Colubrid market. We're going to talk about hogs and corn snakes, both of which Jessica works with. Care of both, pluses, minuses, talk about the market, and even throw some oddballs in there. Jessica keeps several Eurasian, mostly more European than Eurasian, rat snakes. So leopard rat snakes, Elaphacitula, if you like those, there should be some talk of those. So that's what the episode is about tonight. Now, getting on to other things. Been a busy week here in West Virginia. I'm sure it's been a busy week for you. We've had several storm fronts move through. I put a lot of animals together. Well, actually, nowhere near as many animals as last year because I know that I'm going to have an insane summer. But I've got several locality Florida King pairs together. I have the Stewart's milk snakes. I actually put those together in a bioactive 4x2x2, and I'm absolutely loving them in there. It's pretty cool. You walk by and you just see like 2.5 inches of coral snake. So with the pothos and the crypto, all the bromeliads and things I have in there. So that's pretty cool. But they've been mating. I have a couple false water cobras that are ready to drop, and I have my first clutch of 2025 on the ground. And it's the first time that I have giant Madagascar hognose snake eggs. Leoheterodon madagascariensis, which is a fun one. Yeah, I made a post about the Friends Don't Let Friends Use Clear egg boxes. And I did exactly what Dr. Zac said to do. And this wonderful female snake literally had to have had her cloaca just outside the entrance to the egg box because there was a perfect pile of eggs, somewhat dehydrated, right outside the egg box. Like her tail was sticking out, but her whole body was up in the egg box. So I guess she needed a bigger box. But anywho, one of the things I'm breeding this year that a lot of people had interest in. So if you want them, let me know. Wide-banded Pinellas Florida Kings, which are an intergrade king. They damn near look like a morph, but they're a locality, and they haven't been bred in mass. I literally bought every single one I saw, either on Facebook or Morph Market. So I'm sitting on, I think, 3.5 of them, and I've bred 4 of the 5. So females, successful locks. So hopefully that leads to something. And I've been crossing as many bloodlines as I can. There's only 2 bloodlines, so it's not many, but I have both. So that's my update so far. Oh, and I got another one. Field season started. Holy hell, that's scary. We run a snake project. We call it Snake Project, real original name, at West Liberty. We've been doing it now since 2017, where we've been studying queen snakes and common water snakes in the stream below campus. And yesterday, which was March 30th, I was outside just cleaning around my house and I realized, like, I'm hot. And so I texted my students, go to the creek and see if the snakes are out if you're not doing anything. And so they did, and they got our first queen snake and our first common water snake. So
cool.
That's there. And then I don't know, but Colubrid Fest update for the research. the grad students have been chosen to work on the hognose/snake community dynamics projects, and we are heading out to Iowa to set up the field site. And I have used the Colubrid Fest funds. I bought receivers in the past week, and receivers receive the signal from the telemetry devices, which are the things you implant in the snakes. I also have those that I've been purchasing. Got some backpacks and tapes and UV meters and all kinds of other happy stuff. But that's all coming directly from the auction primarily, and then some great people like John Rice, who sold a couple hognose snakes and donated us the funds. So been a good week. Been a couple busy weeks since we recorded last. But yeah, that's my update. How about you?
So had kind of a lot, some fun stuff. So this past week, it was my kids' spring break. So they were home all week. And we actually, Wendy and I both took Saturday off from both shops. So we had the entire weekend where all of us, the entire family, got to go out to the property that we have about 45 minutes from here, and got to do a little bit of field herping. Not a whole lot of time, but came across some local salamanders, a little 5-line skink, and a coolest little centipede I've ever seen locally. Leech's centipede, I think is what it's called, something like that, but really pretty. And some frogs. And then the kids played in the creek for the rest of the day after riding their 4-wheelers. But it was nice just to be able to get out and enjoy nature for a little while. Yeah. And believe it or not, an entire weekend of no fighting amongst the family. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah, it was nice.
Miracles do happen.
Yes. So that was great. In store, we've had, there's been some fun things too. So I went through and finally had a moment to, I didn't have a moment to, I was kind of forced to. Steve was on vacation last week, which means I needed to go through and check the collection and, do some cleaning and make sure that Corey, who is now learning how to clean the collection when Steve's out, Corey, of course, is who takes care of the nursery. But it gives me the chance to go through and kind of put eyes and hands on all the females, all the snakes, all the female snakes. Yeah. To finish that sentence,
you needed to add a modifier there, bud.
Words are important. So to put my hands and eyes on all the snakes and check, as far as follicles and, all that good stuff. And so marking all these females that are gravid so far. And it's primarily the ball pythons. There's a bunch of gravid females in there, but cock's eye are ready to drop. There's, so the bamboos are going. And there's a lot that I'm like, I think you are. Next week, I should know for sure. So it's definitely kicking off. And that's, of course, super exciting. It's always such a fun time of year. We have had our first hatching of the season. Some beardies, some sriracha babies, the bearded dragons here in the shop. Those are always incredibly popular, and it never ceases to amaze me how big and vibrant his babies come out as. It's just, it's funny because they hatch out bigger than beardies I get sent in when I have to order beardies. It's just insane. There you go. So those are hatching. That's cool. So I decided I wanted to play around with a new species. I don't think I told you this, Zach. I mentioned it on Joe's show, I think last week. So I decided I wanted to play around with a new species. So I got a couple paradise flying snakes.
What the hell? Okay.
Yeah. Well, cool. I've got feeder lizards, right? So it's like, I can do this, right? I can do this. And they're so gorgeous. I'm like, let's see what we can do with it. Now, I want to tell you what I've learned about paradise flying snakes. So, one, they are fast as hell.
Yeah.
Super fast. Like the kind where, pew, and I'm catching them in midair.
Yeah.
Because right now, like, they're going to get set up in arboreal enclosures, of course. But when I first get them in, we're going to put them in sterile. We're going to treat them, make sure they don't have mites and, all that before setting them up. So they're going in a rack system because I find that mite treatment's much better in a rack system. It's more effective then whenever you give them so much air and space that it doesn't work as well against the little creepy crawlies. So anyway, but I wanted to give them ample space because they are such an active species. And I mean, these are probably a good 3 feet long at this point.
Nice.
So they came in with size. So I was putting them in CB70s. Well, those little boogers can flatten themselves. Yes. Yeah. I had to catch myself there. They can flatten themselves so well, they can squeeze through the little gap on a well-made CB7 animal plastic CB70 rack system. Because I somebody came to me and they're like, hey, one of those Paradise are out. I'm like, are you kidding me? And so I go and I look at that one. I'm like, okay. And I look at the one below it that the other one was still in. I'm like, well, that one does have a little bit bigger gap in there. All right. Well, I mean,
that's how they glide.
Yes, I know. Once it happens, you can put 2 and 2 together. Yeah. But I wasn't adding to make 4 because I didn't have to until suddenly 2 was missing. You know what I mean? So, but then 2 days later, they're like, hey, the other Paradise snake's gone. Are you kidding me? This one barely had any gap and it squeezed through that. Now we found one already. But we've got some things out to catch the other one. But I'm like, my God, those things really can flatten themselves out. So I now have one Paradise snake. And it's eating. Everything's fine. And as soon as it goes through its quarantine phase, we'll set up in Arboreal and get to play a little more with that. But you mentioned 2 things that are going to, I want to touch base on very quickly. I mentioned the CCR Conservation Fund and money that is being used. Speaking of, I want to give a quick shout out to Eric Westmoreland and his wife both. They at the shows, they are selling wrist bracelets that all the proceeds they then donate straight to CCR, the CCR Conservation Fund. And I love there's times where I'll just see it come through and I know exactly what it's from. At Tinley, they came over and handed me cash to go donate and put into the fund. And I just think it's so awesome. Really appreciate that you guys are repeatedly doing that. And I think everyone who has donated, I want everyone to know that. I just love seeing that and seeing them post about it and continuing to.
Thank you, Eric and company.
Yes. Yeah. Raising awareness, of the fund. And, that's fantastic. I also want to talk about something cool, and he doesn't even know I'm doing this on the show. So, cause we're having a meeting about it tomorrow. Egg boxes. So Andrew, one of my friends here, who is at Colubrid Fest and is a regular in the shop, who I've also talked about his brilliant engineer mind and what he does with it. So after hearing the talk about, egg binding and the dark egg boxes, he has designed one and made it. And I love it. Love it. The way the entrance keeps bedding from going in or falling out. It's completely blacked out with a nice, easily removable top. I am in love with this thing, and he's already modifying it to make it even better. So we're having a meeting about it tomorrow. And we're looking at having these manufactured and, rolling out this design. If we can make everything line up, the way we need to from a cost to effective standpoint, as well as efficiency, not only will we have these for Metazotics, but I'm hoping that we will have these to bring to Colubrid Fest.
Ah, sweet.
And my vision with this is how fantastic would it be if at the second Colubrid Fest there is a specific product on the table that originated from learnings at the first Colubrid.
That's pretty badass.
Yes.
It makes my teacher heart go pitter patter.
Oh, I just think it's so neat, So so we're working on that, and we're going to sit down and discuss, what that's going to look like and what it'll take. I think he's already done quite a bit of research. So I just wanted to, when you mentioned that darked out egg box, I'm like, you know what? I'm not even going to wait. Let's talk about how cool this is. So I've already got one in use here that he has designed and made. And so I'm trying it out, and he's trying some out too. And what was funny is, I will say this: I put it in a cock size cage, and I have a pair that I'm cohabbing in there, during breeding season right now. And within 45 seconds of me putting it in, the male was already in it. He's already snooping it and getting through. So it's really cool. I thought that was exciting. So
no, that's wicked.
Yeah, that's I think that's kind of what we got going on around here right now. That's our update.
All right. Well, should we jump into the market update?
I can do that. Absolutely. Yeah. Although we are recording this on March 31st, it's close enough to April. Okay. So, so we are going to, by the time this comes out, it will be the first episode of the month, which of course I like to go into numbers and graphs. And this is also the first episode of a new quarter. And so I find that that's interesting. And I'm going to have some pieces outside of, Metazotics specific. Let's put it that way in a moment. But I want to say, as always, the market update is brought to you by Show Me Reptiles and the Show Me Marketplace. We again want to thank them for putting on Colubrid Fest for us, for putting shows all across the country, and for continuing to support the reptile community as a whole, but especially the Colubrid arena. So thank you, Mickey and team. Check them out for a local show at showmesnakes.com. So, okay, let's go into some graphs, some numbers, and really what we see. Let's make sure I can do this right. We're going to share screen here. I guess I got to pop that up.
If you're driving in your car, we're trying to share a screen. And we successfully did it. So there you go.
And I got to start it over here. Sorry, guys.
We kind of successfully did it.
Okay, here we go. All right, so what we're looking at here is really what we were expecting. So the graph that I've got up, for those who can't see this is showing the ball python listings that we see on Morph Market, as well as the total listings of all snakes on Morph Market. I always throw these two together because balls, heavily skew. Usually these lines are going to be pretty close to one another. And what we see from the beginning of January through February and through March is that decline. And we expected to see that because of two factors. One, we don't have new animals being listed typically in this area because we don't have things hatching yet. But number two, tax season. And you can see exactly where tax season hits. Boom, right there in February through March. Pow, you see where it suddenly starts dropping down. And we saw ball pythons drop almost almost 5,000, because as of right now, there are 33,471 ball pythons listed versus 38,000, almost 38,400 a month ago. And then total listings fell from 53,800 down to 47,100. So again, that's, as you guys heard me preaching from the first of the year, get those ads up, get your animals out to view, because taxes will cause movement for sure. And we certainly saw that. But let's talk about the Colubrid market and what we see happening there. You can see up here, we've got hognose continue to be the dominant force in the Colubrid market. We'll talk about that market separation there in just a little bit, but it followed the same path that really the balls did, and the overall market, where you can see that sudden decline that hit, as of February, it just starts to fall off. Same thing, the number 2 category, corn snakes, you see that they had an even bigger dip at that same time, and really most follow that. There was one that I think lifted up, and I believe that was milks, slightly lifted, not much. But as of right now, pits, which of course are bulls, pines, and gophers, we have 230 animals listed. Corn snakes, 1,649. Garters, oh, the lowly garters, only 22 garters are currently listed. I'm telling you, that is a sleeper segment, 100%. Hognose, 2,767 are listed. House snakes, 174. Kings, 1,101. Milks, 397. Rat snakes, 421. All other colubrids, 194. But let's kind of take a look now at what that means as far as market share. So ball pythons are still holding at 71% of the market, which again, as we know, they were as high as 78% last year. So they're stepping down. They barely moved as far as market share from March to April. They went from 71.3% to 71.1%. Other pythons went from 4.4% of the market to 4.3%. Boas stepped up just a little bit. 9.4% of the market in March. The beginning of March to now the beginning of April, 9.8. So up 0.4 points. And then you've got colubrids at 14.9% at the beginning of March, 14.8% the beginning of April. So pretty much flat at a negative 0.1 point movement. So really the only one that gained market share were boas. And that's not so much that they gained market share as they didn't sell as many from a percentage standpoint as all the other categories. They tend to dip a little bit further. So truthfully, as a whole, the market breakdown stayed about the same as far as percentage of market share. No real shifts there. Everything moved pretty steadily, with one another. Now the colubrid market share, we can continue to look at that. This hognose segment, man, every time I say that number, I'm just in awe of that number. Hognose continue to make up 40% of the colubrid market. And I said this, I said this on the Colubrid Corruption podcast, I believe. One of the reasons that impresses me so much is if you think back when corn snakes were the thing, which would have been prior to ball pythons. Part of the reason corn snakes were so big is not only because they were beautiful and available, but it was hard to get anything else. And even when ball pythons really took over, you still couldn't get everything with the click of a mouse, right? And there wasn't as many options as far as species and things available. So I guess what I'm saying is to see hognose become so dominant in an arena that has so many species to choose from with such ease to acquire really says something about the popularity of that particular species. So again, that continues to impress me. This one over here, as you guys keep hearing me talk about garter snakes, they make up less than 1% of what's available with such neat things out there. So I'd watch it. I would watch the bulls, the pines, and the gophers as those. I mean, when I'm lumping three different types of snakes into one category and it's still only making up 3%, I think that's another one that we can see really have some rise there. So some cool stuff. Now, I said that, close this, sorry. Stop sharing. So another thing that I think is neat. So we keep hearing about the doom and gloom in the ball python market, right? We keep hearing that it's dead, it's dying, it's going away. And we hear a lot of complaints coming from that segment. So I decided to look at something and share that with the group here. So sorry, I'm getting to I wanted to look at Metazotics breakdown. Okay, we've got a quarter under our belt right now. And year to date, I wanted to look at what percentage of our revenue came from various categories to give me an idea on how successful we are right now in these categories. Now, the top three categories are not a reptile. And I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
Top three categories are going to be habitats, insect feeders, then rodent feeders, in that order. But now our number 4 category Our number 4 category was colubrids. And colubrids year to date make up 10.3% of all sales by volume for Metazotics. And that's including online, in-store, at shows, and 2 locations, 2 retail fronts. Ball pythons are coming in at number 5 at 9.3%. So we're only talking about a 1% difference, a 1-point difference from colubrids to ball pythons as far as volume of sales. Here's the kicker. And you've heard me say it, ball pythons continue to sell, but they don't move at the prices that individuals were trying to hold them at. You have to let the market dictate where they go. So with that in mind, colubrids make up 10.3% of the overall volume that Metazotics has sold, and we have sold 108 colubrids year to date. 108. Ball pythons make up 9.3%, so only 1% difference in volume. We have sold 302.
Jesus.
So you have 1 point difference in sales volume, but almost 3 times as many units, so to speak.
Yeah.
So again, I can't stress this enough. The market is still there as far as numbers that will move. They are not going to move at the number that you wanted them to. So it's all about reading the market, adjusting to it, adapting to it. I thought those 2 pieces of information were pretty interesting. And to be honest with you, I didn't even realize that until I put this report together. I didn't realize that they were so close. I'm behind on my P&L generation with the opening of the second store. I'm still getting caught up on a lot of this stuff. So I didn't realize that we were so close in volume, but to actually see the number of items sold, that really makes it wow. That makes it stand out. So, so I felt that to be quite interesting, and I think it is telling of where the market is at the moment, where it continues to go. I have not really seen much, as far as hesitation in buying. I am continuing to get a lot of online interest. I know that others are too. I know that some are utilizing auctions, and normally that was a big ball python item, but I know that some colubrid keepers are starting to flirt with that and having some success. And I launched our first auction today.
I saw that.
Yeah, it's an albino black rat snake. I just want to see what happens. I've never really done one, and I'm like, yeah, I'll play with that. Let's see how that goes. But I have some friends of ours have mentioned that they're having some success, and so I'm curious. And I want, even if it's not an avenue that I utilize often, I want to know more about it. So it makes sense. It's a part of our industry, now, and I doubt it's going away anytime soon. So I want to be a little bit more versed in what to expect on this side of it. I've bid on some and won some, but haven't really put much up myself. So I would continue to say that while animal pricing, that's just going to go with the flow. I'm going to say until some big things change, and this is one I want to be wrong on. I do expect products to continue to increase as far as their cost. And it's for multiple reasons. You've got one, the imposed tariffs are going to affect what's coming over. I've already seen some of the pricing that I have to pay go up, which in turn, it's going to end up increasing the pricing that I have to charge. But I'm also seeing that there's changes that are being made in distribution channels, shipping and things like that. It's moving to different companies. More is being charged on shipping. So the actual cost of your dry goods, this goes out to everyone. Don't hold it against your local shops. If you see, if it goes up $10, $20, that's a problem. But if you see a couple dollars here or there, understand that that's nobody gouging. Unfortunately, that's coming from someone who sees the wholesale cost and the shipping cost. They are continuing to rise. So So expect that. Expect that coming in the next 3 to 6 months. You'll see more of it. And that's what I'm going to have for the market.
All right, sweet. Okay. Before I do the science update, a couple other just dates you may want to throw into your calendars if you like the nerdy discussion, sciencey aspect of herpetoculture. I will be talking at the Reptile Talks in Anaheim, California, which is the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th of May. And we mentioned it, I think, before that Clint and I are heading out early. We're going to do a little bit of California herping with our friends in California. And I'll be giving a nice, big, chunky talk on false water cobra, natural history, and husbandry. So if you're thinking about doing that and you're in California, do it, because you'll get to meet Clint and I. We'd love to meet you. And I am praying. I've got to fly out early. I've got to fly out on Sunday because I got to be in Kentucky doing crayfish stuff the following Tuesday. But I saw that Philippe de Vosgelet is giving a talk on Baron racer husbandry, and holy hell, if I can listen to the herpetocultural god give a talk on one of my top 5 favorite snakes, doesn't get much better than that. And then, both of us are IHS board members, so we should probably start plugging IHS more than we have been. So IHS is going to be, I believe, Wednesday, June 18th through Saturday, June 21st in Fort Myers, Florida. I have put together the Advancing Herpetocultural Husbandry Day of Talks, and this isn't just snake-centric, but I have quite a few people. I've got one person left to commit, but I'm pretty positive they are. Next episode, I'll be releasing everybody that's speaking. But there's quite a few podcasters giving talks. There's quite a few well-respected lizard herpetoculturalists, turtle herpetoculturalists. I've got 2 salamander people giving talks. Like, how badass is that? You never get to hear about salamanders. That's in honor of my Appalachian heritage, by the way. But anywho, so yeah, it's a good day, good time. So think about going to IHS, and you can pay for 1-day admission. So if you're in Florida, you're near Fort Myers, it's not that expensive to come for the Advancing Herpetocultural Day, Husbandry Day. Consider doing that weekend if you've got the time. All right, science update, as always, given to us by supported by Rare Genetics Inc. Ben and Kayla, keep sending them the shed skins. I know they are really pushing the genetic testing for the morphs and the confirmation. Hognose people, get them your skins. They're very interested in getting some tests up for hogs. They already have several for corn snakes, and I know that they're about to release some more. If you want to get your snakes sexed and you don't want to worry about possibly missing popping, like I did now twice, spend the $25, send it to Ben, and he can literally tell you the chromosomes, and you can't mess that up. That's why we want to go with Rare Genetics Inc. Okay, so I was going to do a paper tonight, and I'm pivoting because the paper that I'm going to present next episode it's a big deal paper. I'm going to give an Easter egg. The title of this paper is Environmental Enrichment Increases Brain Volume in Snakes. And they quite literally took on the tub versus enclosure argument, and they used neurobiology and some legit science rather than opinion to tackle that question. And the results are extremely interesting. I was going to do it tonight. I'm not comfortable. I feel like I'm at 90% of understanding the paper, and I want to nail this one. So that's next week. This week, though, I've been told that y'all like the book reviews, and so I'm going to be bouncing between a monotonous journal article and a happy book review, because anytime I get to nerd out about a book, if you only listen to the podcast, you should watch YouTube, because I get this extremely nerdy 10-year-old-ish smile on my face as soon as I grab the books that Clint makes fun of me every time. And so, see, here it comes. It's coming back. So anyway, I want to talk about Williams's treatments on milk snakes tonight, because these are the Bibles if you're a milk snake keeper. And when we had David Dean on, when we had Cole on, they both referenced these books. So I thought, what the hell? I've got them both. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight. So a guy by the name of Kenneth Williams got his PhD, and his PhD was revising Lamprepeltis triangulum. He did this in the 70s, and back in the 70s, we don't have DNA. So basically, what Williams did is a lot of what we call morphotaxonomy, and that basically means it's not what you think. He didn't go out into the field and catch a bunch of milk snakes, per se. What he actually did is he went to museums, probably got a little bit drunk on ethanol, and measured a whole bunch of preserved snakes, because that's where you do morphotaxonomy, is in the museum. And with milk snakes, you've got a really interesting element of their biology, which is, of course, the bands and the patterns and the number of bands and where the band starts. Does the band go all the way around through the ventral scales of the snake? And so Williams worked this all up, did a whole bunch of math, but he also did a formal description of each subspecies, provided maps for each subspecies. And then the part that I like the most is that he throws in a review of the literature on all the natural history for all the recognized subspecies. And so the first version of this is, if you're on YouTube, you can see it. Oh my gosh, I can't. My brain's not working with my camera. There we go. So it's got a nice little, I think that's a Scarlet King, which is really funny because the Lapsoides is now not triangulum anymore. But anywho, and so you can see this thing's about an inch thick. And it's really, really cool if you're an uber nerd. Now, if you like averages and standard deviations, this is the book for you. If you're like, what? May not be the book for you, because it's a bunch of diagnostic taxonomy. All righty. But there's range maps in here that are invaluable. For instance, here's two of them. I don't know what these are, and I'm trying not to break the spine of my book, but you can see basically showing where the animals were collected from and what proportion they represent in his analysis. He also does really nice line drawings of all the species of milk snake. So if you're on YouTube, you can see this. And so if you're a milk snake person, you need to get this book. But you may not want to get Williams 78, because 10 years later, we have the second edition of this book, which has, I believe, no, it's got the exact same title. Okay. But it's the second edition. And in the second edition, there's more. First of all, the book is a bigger dimension, so it's not quite as thick, as you can see. But in this one, there were a couple additions. In Williams 1988, 10 years later, this is where the Pueblan milk snake description is. So all of you that have sockhead Pueblans and Oreo Pueblans and Pueblans, this is the book where they basically enter the world as a known thing. So all the recognized subspecies as of 1988 are in this particular, we call it a monograph. So that's what this is. Now, the downside to this today is, with the onset of nuclear DNA and genomics, we now know, to the chagrin of herpetoculturalists everywhere, that a lot of the subspecies are no longer recognized scientifically. But I've said this a million times on this podcast. Herpetoculture can recognize whatever the hell it wants to. So if you want to recognize a Sinaloan milk snake, what makes a Sinaloan milk snake is in this book. So they're worth getting there. It's just taxonomically, they may not be recognized anymore. But we like our localities. We like our haplotypes. We just don't call them haplotypes. We call them things like Sinaloan milk snakes. But anywho, so that's the science update. If you like Lamprepeltis, that's a good one to get, especially if you like the milk snakes, because there were definitely a couple of the older names where I was like, what the hell is this? And I was able to, find the species account and read it and learn about it and go from there. So they're good. Now, these books, I'm going to give a shameless plug to literally my dealer. That's what I call him. It sounds like my drug dealer. He basically is that. And that would be Mike Crick. Mike Crick Books. Look it up on Facebook. If you're wondering, where the hell do you get these books? I believe I got both of these off of Mike.
Got so many books off of Mike, and he's always got the coolest. I mean, just stuff you've never thought of. Or
he is doing more damage to me right now than live animal. So anyway, give him a gander. And he currently lives in West Virginia, so a fellow West by God individual I will always support. So there you go. So that's the science update. That's what we have. And yeah, so are we ready to move on with
I think we are.
Okay, cool.
I think we are. And
Alrighty.
So we're about to bring on Jessica Hare. And, as always, the guest portion now is brought to you by ReptiChip. We want to thank ReptiChip for all of their support and looking forward to seeing the new products that they roll out.
Yes. So, Jessica, welcome to Colubrid and Colubroid Radio. How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for having me on. How are you guys doing?
No worries.
Doing great. Looking forward to having you on, Jessica. I tell you, I think Jessica is one of these rare individuals that meet right in the middle of you and I, because she brings this big academic brain. Because I believe you guys studied the same place, right? Am I?
Yes.
Yeah. So she brings.
Both got our masters at Marshall University with Dr. Polly.
There you go. And then she also plays in the market as well. So she plays in my sandbox. So I think that you're going to be a very neat guest for the both of us, Jessica.
All right, good. Hopefully.
Don't screw this up.
Yeah, oh, no. A lot of pressure now.
Okay, cool. So if you don't mind, and obviously Jessica Hare has a podcast herself, and we'll talk about that here in a minute. So she's used to this, and I'm sure she hates this question that we're about to ask her, but we're asking it of you, Jessica.
Okay.
How did you end up where you're at? Have you always been in the snakes? Have you not been in the snakes? Late bloomer in this world?
No, I always liked animals. I wanted to be a lion when I was 5. So yeah, whatever. I'll do whatever. But I didn't know I particularly liked snakes until I got a pet snake at 12. I was like, this is the best, actually. I like everything, really. Because they were just very compelling animals, good pets. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know I really liked it until I got on the internet at like 14 in like 2000 or 90. Yeah, 2000. And you're like, oh, there's other nerds, snake nerds. And so then whatever you like when you're 15 is basically fixed in your brain forever. So
that's fair.
That's where I am.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think the internet certainly opened up a lot of doors when it came to the big world of reptiles. Before that, it's just what you'd seen on TV, really. And so much of that was the animals you really weren't going to keep for the common person, meaning it was always venomous or anacondas and big pythons. That's what was always on television when they would show snakes. But whenever you got introduced to, so many of the what we'll call more manageable species, and whether it's colubrids or the small pythons and smaller boas, really kind of made us realize what was out there. So.
Yeah, and previous to that, people would be introduced to that because they, went to the county fair and won an iguana and something not as good, or maybe there was a pet land in their mall with iguanas. Yeah. So it was much harder to be someone introduced to it. So my initial introduction to herpetoculture was sort of inception of early internet herpetoculture specifically, which actually drove my sort of scientific interests, not the other way around.
That's cool.
That is neat.
Mm-hmm. Like I had Ronnie's boa video for the VHS tape.
Oh, nice. I remember that.
Yeah, it had like a VHS band because it was like poorly recorded from 2 VHS's machines. And then like a thermal label printer on it, $50. That's how much it cost. Check that for inflation.
Oh my gosh.
2002.
So for college, we're going to go here. You went to Shepherd, Shepherd University, which is about 3.5 hours from West Liberty University, except Shepherd is in a much better part of the state of West Virginia if you're herpetologically oriented than me.
Maybe.
No, 100%. You've got popular snakes like 20 minutes from campus, probably on campus, if you think about it.
No shot. Maybe in like Harper's Ferry. It's depauperate. It's been farmed. Great Valley has been farmed for 200 years. We don't even have gray tree frogs in the Great Valley anymore. They're on the mountains, and they're when you're more properly west of North Mountain. So like they stop. They're all dead. They put copper in the water. They're dead. We barely have like upland chorus frogs. It's peepers, American toads, and like whatever sort of weedy last ditch effort. Like one time I saw because there's karst on like the eastern part. So like every once in a while you'll find the last ancient red salamander clinging for life in a spring because that spring has not yet been infiltrated by nitrates from the 18,000 cows.
Yeah, in the Great Valley.
You're the only one. Goodbye, friend, because they live a long time. He's not going to stay there.
But if you drive half an hour west, you can kind of get out of the Great Valley into some of the ridge valleys.
Right the second you pass over North Mountain, you get intersections. Like 6 lines will come down the Pawpaw Tunnel, and corn snakes are there. So it's actually like, I don't know, weird. Like it's like relictual of like mini like post-glacial retreat habitats colliding all at once.
Yes.
But
in
general.
Are you back? You're back. Okay.
Sorry. Okay. What did we miss? Oklahoma internet's back.
No, we're fine. So when you were at Shepherd getting your undergrad, I know that you were doing some herp research. Wasn't necessarily snake research, correct? It was turtles?
It was wood turtles.
Yeah.
I mean, the probability of refinding snakes is very hard.
Yes. Extremely hard.
Because the snake density is not like it is in the South. Like you could road cruise all night at ideal times and ideal habitats and see no snakes, which is true in many places. A lot of times you'll be like, I road cruised 10 corn snakes today in South Florida. And I'm like,
not West Virginia.
Yeah, no.
You would road cruise a week and get one snake, potentially.
Right. They're just not as dense in the landscape, and they don't seem to rely on even, I don't know, like it doesn't seem like they use roads the same way in terms of thermoregulation. They still do like the summer shift where they'll be diurnal during the spring and diurnal during the fall, but they're not warm enough early enough in the season to go use a road to begin with. They're too busy waiting by their hibernacula to warm up a little bit to think about walking somewhere by late April if they're lucky. So it's a different place to herp. We also don't have like, I just think they're all dead. What do you think about that?
I don't think they're all dead.
Listen, most of them are dead. Like I used to drive from Shepherd west through Martinsburg, up North Mountain, down because you can drive the entire like crest of the mountain through Sleepy Creek, down through Inwood. So I did like a 3-county loop every night after undergrad, just to check, and they would do side roads as needed. They're dead. I know how many there are. Most of them are dead. Okay.
Well, you're the regional expert, so they're dead.
Sorry. I tried to bust your bubble. I remember having a talk with Paul, and he's like, like tree frogs are like post-disturbance infiltrators. I'm like, baby, here they are. Where I am, they're all dead. So like, he's like, they should do fine in the Great Valley. I'm like, well, they're not here. It's wild.
So you did the wood turtles undergrad, then you went to Marshall, and what'd you do at Marshall?
I just did wood turtles again.
I know.
I copped out.
Yeah, you did cop out. Wood turtles are bad. I love wood turtles.
I did at the last year have a growth curve that was 6 years long for an already mature wood turtle, which might have been interesting.
I think it's interesting. I think
now, at that point, you gotta remember it was like nobody cared. Maybe it's more like sympathy for organismal research. At that point, there was like, if you weren't doing like some sort of GIS-based mapping where they could just you could convince a government that you didn't actually have to pay people to check anything, and they would think there'd be like sensitive habitat there, and that was the entire
it was all mathematical modeling.
So crap. Stupid.
Yeah. I kind of liked it.
I know, because it's stupid.
When I did my thesis at I don't think I've ever talked about this on the show. So I went to Marshall, and I was not smart like Jessica, because I was like, I'm going to study snakes. And I knew what I was getting into because I studied snakes in my undergrad. And I talked to Dr. Polly, and he infamously said, you really want to do that? And I was like, yeah, I want to study snakes. And then he said, okay, well, here's the species. And one of those was the eastern hognose snake. And at the time I was like, yeah, I've never seen one. No way in hell. But somebody said there were eastern hognose snakes in Raleigh County on this strip mine. And there were a bunch of them. And so I decided I can do this. I'm going to study the snakes. So I went to Raleigh County, which is like 3 hours from Huntington, where Marshall is. And I get to this mine, and it looked like when I walked out onto the bench of the mine, I thought nothing is alive here. It was a surface mine. And I walked out on this thing, and I'll never forget the first time I walked out, because there was another grad student with me. And it was like April. It was right now. Like it was right around the 1st of April. And it was about 70 degrees air temperature, but it was sunny. And I walked out onto this barren rock front that looked like the surface of Mars. And I took my temp gun and I zapped the bench. And in August, the surface temperature was 103 degrees. And so I thought, but the hognose snakes are here because this guy said they're there. So we set up a mile of drift fence on a freaking surface mine. And you've got to dig and bury the fence. But there was nothing to dig because it was rock. So we were out there with freaking pickaxes like miners, chipping away at this rock, making like an inch-long trough that lasted a mile. It went a freaking mile. And guess what I caught? With over 2,000 trap nights, I caught 2 spring peepers.
Nice.
That was it. That's what
and maybe a little bit of heavy metal poisoning for you.
Yes.
It
was such a horrible place. The box turtles would walk out onto the bench of the mine because it was cloudy, because there were berries out on the mine. And then the clouds would go away at like 11 or noon, and they'd be like, oh, crap, and literally be running off the surface of the mine, but it would go from like 80 degrees to 150, no joke, in about 8 minutes. And I found at least 7 box turtles that were mid-stride. Like one side, the front leg was out as far as you get, the back leg was out as far as you get, and then the middle 2 legs were close together, and their mouths were completely open. They had overheated. Yeah. It was a freaking box turtle trap. Like, it was the most depressing place for herps I've ever been. Needless to say, didn't find a single freaking hognose snake. That might be why I'm writing the book now. It's called Redemption. There's a little bit
the best place for hognose that I've been to is like Morgan County. So like still Valley of Ridge, but not nasty Great Valley. I mean, I love the Great Valley, but listen.
Yeah. So I've subsequently found hogs in West Virginia.
Yeah.
I did find one hognose snake on the road outside. This is also a fun story. So when you do your master's degree, you're like living this miserable existence, but I liked the misery. I don't understand why. I liked the challenge, and I wasn't going to quit. So I just kept going. And I was desperately trying to figure out something to do on this damn mine that was like the surface of death. And so I studied great tree frogs, and I did things with ringneck snakes. And there was a place where copperheads would have their young, which was cool. But I was driving to the mine one day, and my brother-in-law was a freshman at Marshall, which meant he was my field tech, whether he wanted to be or not. So I threw him in my Cavalier, my little 93 Cavalier, and I'm driving to the mine. I see a snake crossing the road. And, first of all, I was just excited to see a freaking snake. And then I was like, that is a very bright orange copperhead. And then as I got closer, I realized it was a hognose snake. And I don't give a crap if a fully loaded coal truck was coming down that road. After putting in thousands of hours on that mine, I was catching that snake. So I just drove into the other lane to miss the snake. And I apparently got out of the car and didn't put it in park with my brother-in-law in it. So he's just drifting off the road towards the creek. And I ran back, grabbed the snake, and it immediately vomited on me and musked and defecated. Like, all 3 liquids. Musk, vomit, poo.
That's when you knew you were in love.
I was absolutely completely smitten. There's a picture of me, and I got this crazy deranged look on my face. There's musk all over me. There's crap on my face because it projectile shot it up there. And I just look like euphorically happy. Christopher took it with my camera, and I can't find it because I wanted that to be the author pick for the Hognose book. I thought that would be like the perfect thing in the world, but it's gone to like history. But anyway, I brought that snake home, took a crap load of pictures of it, and then I brought it back. And it was like 50 feet from the entrance of my mind. So there you go. But subsequently, I learned what not to do. That's what I tell everybody with my master's degree. And now that I can do herpetological research again, you know, I'm willing to go 11 and a half hours to where we're guaranteed to find snakes, then try to find snakes to make a project work. So anyway.
It's not very many years or just physical time to finish anything. So you have to pick something that you have high reproducibility with.
Yeah. So anyway, okay. So we both had an interesting time at Marshall. All right. So I know post-Marshall, that's when you basically jumped into this herpetoculture gig full time, correct?
Yeah, I guess. Fair? Are we full time, or am I?
Well, you're the closest thing to full time without being full time. How about that?
Okay.
What did you move into first? Let me ask that. What did you start keeping first with any type of number?
The greatest species of all time, of course.
We are boa fans here.
We are boa fans. We've got 3 of them right over there.
Yeah. I'm pretty stoked. We've got probably at least 4, if not 6, pregnant boa females back there right now.
Holy hell.
Yeah.
Good.
One of which being a doom rules. And I'm really excited about that because our other doom rules boa slugged out last year. So hoping to have differences.
Yeah, boas is what the first snake I had. And the first snake I bought a lot of and wanted to breed at scale as like a teenager. And those were most of them that I had. Oh, my husband came in. All right. And those are the ones that all died from arenavirus. And so then I was depressed. And then I went to grad school and mass undergrad.
Okay, gotcha.
And so when I got back in, I'm like, oh, thank God. They established a causative agent for IBD and they have a test. It's very nice of them. And so boas first.
Now, is that so? One of the things I know about you, Jessica, is that you are a big proponent on having animals tested, both when they come into your care and regularly. And that's one of the things I've heard from multiple people. And anytime I've listened to your show, I've heard it come up multiple times. So that actually then leads me to a question. Was it that event that really hammered that in for? I figured
it's a core memory,
but because I didn't know, I didn't know, like before you said that, I thought that it came from your academic background and that maybe that led you into, really wanting to check that things. But now it makes sense that, having something like that really gut punch you the way it did. That, okay, got it.
Yeah. I would hope that I would have enough intellect to come to a decision that an animal should be managed with some animal science, no matter the species. But I think most people aren't scared of fire until they're burned. Really? Because you can make a lot of excuses.
100% agree with that. Yes.
You can make a lot of excuses for why it's not the right time to do something that costs money and is effort. It makes the hobby less fun. You can't just collect infinitely with no regard for biosecurity, which I think is something some people want people to do. They're just like, you want to buy one ball python? Well, why not collect 40 within 6 weeks? Because you like the colors and they're easy to take care of. But then they're all in quarantine together.
Yeah. That's kind of counterintuitive.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I think, the thing that we can relate that to for most people are mites. When you said you've got to get burned before you really are afraid of the fire. And I think that when we talk about quarantine and just sitting away, people that aren't treating for mites, especially things like ball pythons, some of the species that are going to be the more common to have it within the hobby, that it takes them getting them in the collection before they ever really start the proper procedures to avoid getting it again. I think you made an excellent point there. So
yeah, and I think that's sort of like the immaturity of our hobby overall. Like if you want to ride horses at a horse show, you have to have a Coggins test before you come. So one day we will probably have the same sort of biosecurity rules for snakes or lizards, potentially, if it's something that's maybe more airborne, maybe lower sort of, maybe something that's a problem. Maybe we will do that too. Because I mean, horses obviously cough. Snakes don't cough in the same way. So like, but it's technically a Chinese wet market out there every time you go to the reptile show. And we could class it up a little bit. What about 20% more class? No, like sloppy delis, no people touching other people's tables without consent.
Don't hang your snake over my table as you're walking.
Maybe like instead of like if someone's showing someone else a snake, you ask permission to touch instead of immediately assuming that because maybe that person has sanitized. I make them wear gloves. Let's normalize that. Hand sanitize, dry, then put on gloves. Because Cryptosporidium thinks that hand sanitizer is very cool and fun and loves to swim in it, and it's fine. So what good does it do to ask them to hand sanitize and not do the other step for the one thing that is the worst thing to detect and still untreatable? Like, I don't know. It's hard. Life's hard. But this is like a big impediment because they're like, the hobby's not fun if you do these things. And I'm like, maybe it's not supposed to be fun. You're taking care of living things. Hello.
Well, not to sound highfalutin or anything, but I say this all the time. There is a certain level of discipline that has to be applied to this in order for it to actually exist long term. And the people that don't want the discipline element of herpetoculture should probably have like a pet ball python, maybe. Maybe I said maybe. Or a corn snake or a hog, but they don't need to be having multiple animals because if you're not willing to do this simple biosecurity, you're just going to basically be a vector. Like, that's it.
It's not fair. Like,
no,
it's not fair. Like, it's cool. It would be awesome if all of them were free from disease and death, but that's like la la land. But people act like they're disposable and they don't have any sort of value. It's like, whatever, I'll just get another ball python if this one dies. They don't think about them as animals.
Yes.
Really. They're just like people don't quarantine their guppies for it because the guppies aren't expensive enough to care about, apparently. But then like that's another thing. Like this just proves that people think their reptiles and amphibian pets are disposable because they're not willing to do even a modicum of basic care. Yeah, unfortunately. But so many people are. And the more you tell people, most like conscientious buyers and producers will be like, oh, that's a problem. I see the problem now. So they're willing to execute actions to make it better. Like have a quarantine that's not just slap them with the cage with some PAM and like put it in the same rack as everything else. That's not enough. It has to be even more than that. And it's just about telling people. The smart ones will do it. The dumb ones won't. The dumb ones will experience pain and loss.
Since we're on this topic, do you mind talking about what you do for quarantine? I always love to ask people this question.
So if you could do it indefinitely, that would be great.
Yeah. Like
literally forever. Like if you, in a perfect world, I would have a compound with no.
Wouldn't we all? You know?
Yeah.
Hopefully the ATF does not show up. But if this compound existed, there would be like separate buildings with separate ventilation, with footpaths at each building, and things would arrive in cohorts, right?
Yeah.
Perfect scenario. Doesn't exist. Okay. Secondary scenario. I have a building with adult animals in it. It is all of them. Ideally, they would be separated by species, but again, no perfect scenario. Babies are in the house. Animals that come in that I purchased and I'm waiting to test are in quarantine in the office. And so they stay in here for 3, 6 months, a year, as long as possible until something new comes. Do I test them for everything that's possible to be tested for? No, because that would be impossible. But I test for whatever the common one is for that species and maybe try to retest on the way out of quarantine. And then babies that come back from shows go to a different room in the house. And then babies are protected from adults and the foreign flies associated with the adults in the baby area. But the babies are split. I keep boas still away from other species because arenavirus is vertically transmissible. So that's a lot. Sorry.
No,
But I don't
cool.
even think that's perfect, right? You know,
No.
there's wild
Well, but
house
it sounds-
geckos that run around my porch. Who knows what they have?
Yeah.
Pooping on stuff.
Well, and I think, I mean, it's another point. There's not going to be, at least in the hobby side, there's not going to be a perfect way. You know, we do the best we can. So, those of us that do, or at least try, you know. And I mean, I can tell you that from the perspective of a home breeder, you're doing a lot. You're doing a whole lot more than what most home breed, including whenever I had everything at my house. I didn't have as many rooms to do it. Let me tell you, I had the number of rooms. I wasn't doing it, would be the honest answer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where I didn't have any reptiles in the office. they were all in the basement in different rooms, you know, but
right. Like ideally you'd want, God, even like air.
Yes,
exchange.
you'd want different buildings if you could. Yeah,
right.
absolutely.
So that's why, like, if you can't test some things are basically so undetectable that by the time you know, they're 7 years old or something because they've succumbed. So, like, you cannot even test your way out of it. There has to still be other firewalls that protect some portion of the collection from some other portion of the collection. So spatially, that's one way to do it. That's why you need a compound, really. But this is as good as it gets for a human being with a house, you know.
Well, I was told when I dealt with the infamous crypto outbreak way back when, which was in 2017, I was naive. I'd just gone back into herpetoculture, and I talked to every vet that I basically would find a journal article on crypto, see if I could find the vet, and then I would email the vet. And that's how one of the ways I ended up finding Dr. Bogan at OCIC. And he said something that made a lot of sense to me, which is a door equals a wall. So put as many things behind as many doors as you can. Like, and I was like, okay. So here in my house, I've got these animals that are in the office and they never leave the office. They're stuck here for perpetuity. There's a door. And then that leads to my garage where the big snakes are. There's another door. And then I do exactly what you do. All the babies, they're incubated outside of the garage to the chagrin of my wife, and they live in the dining room. Thanksgiving
very
is really
tolerance
interesting.
analysis are very important with this strategy.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you've ever heard like interviews with Timberline because of like cricket viruses. They literally do this. They have this little like a whole cricket room, built cricket buildings because they could spread really rapidly and they have no production on all these employees and overhead. And so they just firewall everything. We have to do the same things. Ours aren't as airborne, but you know, forward flies exist.
Yeah, and they're horrid.
Yes,
yeah.
they do.
And they're smart and they're evil and they come in from outside. So even if you do a great job, you clean perfectly, a new one could appear each day.
Yeah. And you can try anything that you want inside your facility to fight those damn things. And to me, the best way to fight them, it's in no way does it prevent or eliminate them, but it is seriously spot cleaning every single day. That's the only way to even keep their numbers at bay. And that's because typically then you're finding them when they're in the maggot stage, you know, because it's that fast that it happens, even if you're doing it daily. And it's trust me, if they crap right after you pass by and you're not getting to it till 24 hours later, you got them. You know, it's that fast.
I did a thing on my desk at work because I can do these things. I'm a scientist. Where I caught, I had I went into the one of the labs at Westlip, and we had a little forward boom because it was July, the humidity was up, it was warm in the building, everything was perfect. And I caught a couple big, gnarly females, and we did genetics breeding of fruit flies. So we actually have like all these little tubes with the media for Drosophila. Now, forwards aren't Drosophila, but they look like fruit flies. And so I did them. This is disgusting. I took a pinky head and I threw it in on the Drosophila media, and then I threw the female flies in there, and I just wanted to see how long before the female went in did I see the maggots and the first instar. That was 2.5 days at room temperature. And they went from a maggot to a pupa in 4 days. And then they were in a pupa for a week. They were in that a real long time, which I thought was interesting. And so the whole life cycle took about 12 days. And so because of that, I've since tried to get eyes on everything to get the poo out on if I can get it every 3 days, you're going to make a hit. But even then, I go away on a trip and it's like these little bastards are like, bah, he's gone. And then that's when, I come home to absolute chaos.
Yeah. I've started using like litter box areas in animals that need high humidity. If I know where they will prefer to poop, like ball pythons regularly poop in the same part of their tub, which is like the back, because they want to exit out the front of the whatever. And so if you put drier substrate in the back, that's where the poop is. It can like Sandy Chip with Colubrid poop, like dry it out faster because it's on the hot spot before they can actually they can probably lay eggs on it, but they can't actually get to the chrysalis phase. It's just it sucks. I don't know.
What I do is really disgusting, but this works well because I've lost my mind over forage a little bit. They make me a little kooky. You know how you'll you feed the baby snake, you think I can take a hopper, and in reality it should be eating like a large pinky. So you skipped a size, and then you come in and you're like, oh shit. Then there's the burrito puked up. That's not specific shape of it. Was in a snake's stomach for a little bit. And there's something about those regurgitated mice that just really draw forage to them. And I also noticed that if you drop feed and you think the thing ate the mouse, and then you walk into your room and you have that infamous smell and you're like, oh crap, and you go, the dead mice have a lot of forage. And I teach a lot of population biology. So I was like, okay, why don't we do this? They want the forage, and that's where they're laying the eggs. So we're just going to take these dead mice, put them on a little bit of aspen, and put them in a deli, and we're just going to put them around the room. And it's disgusting, but it's a forage trap. And if you do that and you can stomach the smell, like anytime Kathy goes on a trip, my house will smell like death within 1 day. I am not bringing anybody to the house. I can promise you that. They're going to be like, where's his pit? There's got to be a pit. You know what I mean? But anyway, you just take those things, throw them in the freezer, and you can basically decline the population because the females are trying to find a dead thing to lay their egg on, and you're knocking out the demographic that's responsible for recruitment. And so I do this here. Now, the great thing was I'm at school and we had a forage boom, and I tell my staff, okay, here's what we're going to do.
We're getting dead mice.
Yeah. We're going to put dead mice in cups. We're going to put holes in the cups. We're going to put the dead, and also you got to put them on aspen because those little bastard flies, they run around in the aspen and you actually catch more. But no. So there you go. That's my fun forage fact of the day. You really want to do that. Who do you think's doing that? So
I'm just going to go with cleaning the poop out here. That's
okay. There you go.
That's how I'm going to fight it.
Nope.
I don't want the dead mouse potpourri scattered around.
When I have a big boom, that's what I do. Or if I see a regurgitated mouse in a tub, I'll close the tub and then I run and get the shop vac and just suck everything up. Hopefully I don't get the snake in the process. But that basically serves as a giant attractant. But that I've done that before and quite literally eliminated them from the office here when I had a bad forage explosion. I had a stupid that wasn't stupid. I had a false water cobra that I accidentally fed it two small rats, and it should have eaten one. And then I left on a 7-day trip, and I think it regurgitated the hour I left. And so Kathy was like, there's a smell. I was like, there's no smell. And when I walked in, I was like, oh God, there's a smell. And holy hell, that was the end of days. That was not a good month for my existence with the forage, but I knocked them all back. And that's insanity will drive you to do weird things. So yeah, there you go. Okay. Moving on.
Well, what prompted all of that was what you went into was boas, and then
Yes.
what happened with the
that
boas.
was
Yeah.
40 minutes ago.
That's
So I actually bought a hognose first because I thought they were like
Okay.
pretty cute, like as the next colony to start. And I actually
Nice.
thought she was like not that great of a pet. So I could never find her. She was kind of a picky eater, and I know how to feed snakes. She would be so busy hiding in a bioactive, she wouldn't want to eat because I'd have to disturb her to get her out, and she wouldn't get out to come eat. And I was like, this is fine, but it's not that great actually. And so I started to buy bought some ball pythons, bought some corn snakes, and I was like, oh yeah, corn snakes are like the best actually. Now that I remember, they eat, they don't run away, they don't scream at you. And I was just, I like corn snakes enough that to me, you can have like a colony of corn snakes and projects, and you're doing your thing, just like you can with hognose or ball pythons or boas or whatever. You can have lots of projects. They're just like very reasonably priced. You want to buy 20 of them? Well, great. It's like one nice hognose morph. And I think some people are like, well, you should want one hognose morph to be expensive, but it's hard to like build out a species project if all of them are really expensive, all the parts of that species.
I agree. I've said many times that from a market standpoint, while yes, having high end, those are fantastic when they do sell. Yeah. But you got a much smaller market of individuals that are after that, where that sweet spot seems to be more in that 150, let's say even $200 to $600 range. When you're right in there, that's where you've got a lot of movement, a lot of buyers. And so I think, avoiding going too high end is better in the long run, personally, in my experience.
Right. And I think it can be, and it's okay to have high end parts of any species. That's not like sort of what I'm equivalent with, because like there's always enthusiasts that want something specific. But I had a picky first female that was it's not like selling herself as a species that well, and I did buy her a male and I did breed her, and then she like was egg bound but passed everything with the first one, didn't give her many eggs, and I'm like, you can't stop corn snakes from making babies, like they're just very tractable all the time, very attractive and reasonably priced. They're like the clear winners. Maybe some people think they're not as cute. I think they're very cute.
Oh, see, and I think that the best thing about a corn snake is every time you open that cage and look at it, it looks better than the last time you saw it. The older they get,
it looks at you instead of running away and screaming at you.
And they just get better and better.
Screaming. I want to know what the screaming is.
Even my like relatively well handled like Western hognoses, and definitely the Kinnerly eye, but they'll just like hiss, throw a hood, get the hell out of here, and then they just run away.
Kinnerly eye, 1 out of every 10 want to live.
They're like so far down the path to psycho, it sort of becomes endearing again. So the hognoses are like desperately wanting to eat everything so much that they gravoid out and they just do this, or they hate you. There's not a lot of in between in mine, which maybe I don't have an adequate representation. The corn snakes will like, even when they're hungry now and they're building follicles, they know you're you, so they will like pat you down for mice. I've had them like cavity search. They're like, hey, what do you got in there? As you're going around feeding, they'll come they're looking at you and thinking about what's going on. I don't know if hognoses are thinking that much.
I think it depends on them. I do think that there are some lines that are pretty freaking inbred. I don't even know if they know they're alive. I do know that.
Anyway. Like they know I'm there. They know I'm feeding them. They're just different, and it's fine. But I like boas more than I like ball pythons. So apply that to the Colubrid side. I want an active, semi-arboreal, big, cool head, like functional tree dragon pet. Okay. So I like Pantherophis. I'd rather have a carpet than a of blood, for example. But I understand why that body plan is appealing. That's fine. Corn snakes, cool body plan, right? For me. But a lot of people look at them and they're like, that's a snake. Why would I want just a regular snake? It doesn't look unique. Like the customer base, hognoses are clearly unique, and being fat is like a sales feature. Just naturally being stout of body.
Yes,
people are like, that's cute. That's why ball pythons probably be popular forever. They're fat and they have cute fat faces,
and they look their best when they're a baby.
Yeah,
which makes
sell, right?
Yes, bingo. And that's to me, that's one of the tough sells when it comes to corn snakes. Is as babies, they don't yet fully exhibit how gorgeous they're really going to become.
Yeah.
And so, there's times where you either have to know what you're looking at, or the breeder has to have a representation of it.
Yeah,
in adult form there.
People are very weird. Like if you try to sell like Climax or something, you're like, it's great, it'll turn green blue. They're like, needs to be entertaining now. They'll be out of the hobby before it turns blue. And you're like, oh, okay. Like I think there's like this immediacy in many people that can't be overcome, even with pictures and representative adults. Sometimes it can, but some of these like casual pet buyers, they're like, I need to enjoy it now. So there'll always be place for animals that are attractive right out of the egg. Be honest.
Oh, I mean, it's a YouTube generation. It's I want it now.
It's blue when it grows up. I don't know how to explain this to you. And they're like, nope, not interested.
So when selling corn snakes, obviously I'm assuming they hatch to get them established. The goal is to get them into the hands of a potential buyer so that we don't have to
have a million
pay for the food bill to keep them going. But this is the question for both of you, I guess. Now I'm the interviewer. I thought with my king snakes, because I'm new to this game of selling snakes and I suck at it, because I just keep them here and then I forget, oh yeah, you've got to try to move that. I've thought with some of these Florida Kings, it would be better to get them to 10, 11 inches and then try to sell them for slightly more money, because at that point, they're a little bit more robust. They're definitely eating, and they're the likelihood they can still escape. They can escape at any point in time. But a buyer mistake has to be a more egregious mistake than it is with the stupid little worm of a semi-arboreal snake that can find any little hole and then be gone. That's the only thing that I like about the hogs. When they get out as babies, they're like freaking grubs. They go on the ground and then they're on the ground.
That is a perk. A strict perk.
Freaking corn snake gets loose in this office as a baby. It could be anywhere.
Yeah. I think it's complicated because it depends on who your customer is for me. So a customer at a show maybe has a casual interest in corn snakes, maybe wants one, is price sensitive and initial appeal sensitive. So they're like, is it AML? Is it snow? Does it look cool to me in whatever way I think? They do want it to be small, but not too big. There's a point where it starts to get too big again. And so even though they should want that one, even at the same price, because it won't escape as easily, they want to raise it, grow it up together. They don't want
that person.
Yes. No. And so then online where you're focused on a more advanced person who's like, oh, I get by now the snake might have been eating for 9 months worth of pinkies and is on fuzzies or really small crawlers or whatever. A normal member of the hobby would realize that it's been pretty much the same price. So they'll just buy it now and they're like, oh, what a great deal. So it's about figuring out what the customer actually wants. Because to me in person, to pet people, they become less valuable when they can't raise it themselves, even if it's clearly better.
Okay.
And
even if they look better, I can sell a baby honey. It looks like nothing. Way easier than a yearling honey that already looks yellow. And I'm like, I don't know what's going on in Persian, but online the older one obviously sells better because they're smarter.
Okay.
I agree. I think that with some colubrid species, it's almost that 3 to 6 month age range seems to be about the magic spot. Once it's
established but not big, And because I think sometimes they're like, it hasn't been handled enough by you because you're a breeder, and it's just true. I haven't handled it that much, and so they're a little bit like whippy and feral. But like a real keeper would be like, that's fine, who cares? But a pet person's like, oh, now it's intimidating again. It like crosses back over, and I'm like, okay, that's fine. So like, there's got to be. I've been trying to like parse this out. Like, when is the best time to wholesale? And there's also like a gender bias, which maybe you agree or disagree, Clint. It feels like because baby breeders would want to buy yearling or nearly yearling colubrids that are females preferentially, they will. That stuff does better online, but so do like pet people. They're like, I'm a female keeper. I want a female pet. They tend to be also bias female. So I always end up with excess males sort of now from last year of any morph. And I'm like, okay, that's fine. But I'm like, I should probably preferentially reduce male numbers by wholesaling 2/3 of them early on instead of feeding them and waiting.
Well, and you don't see this as often anymore, but pricing used to reflect that. It was not uncommon that, males were often cheaper than females. You'd have to pay, a little bit more of a premium. You'd buy your 1.2s, 2.5s, whatever, and you'd pay more for females than what you would for males. Right. But I don't see that listed as often anymore. It's got to be like select species that, something real special that you see that as.
I was just surprised pet people care. They don't have no intention of breeding. There's something about like the relationship with a female snake.
Yeah.
So many of these women keepers where they're like, I want a female snake specifically. And I'm like, well, a male's not going to do anything but maybe like run around too much in the spring every year. A female could build follicles. And they're like, don't care. Her name's Sparkles now. And I'm like, okay.
But if you're keeping a pet,
I could tell you it's female and you would never know that it's not. You know what I mean? I'll tell you the thing that shocks me the most about a lot of newer keepers. I never realized how often I would be asked for the birth date.
They love it. They love it.
Yes. I'm like, I think it hatched in September. And I'm asked this about a year-old snake. What's its date of birth? I'm like,
yeah, I've sent these. I don't know if you can see this. These like birth cards. I don't actually print out a certificate. I used to. It takes too much ink, but I'll write in like the birthday and the date last fed and what they're eating on, just so they feel like it's a birth certificate.
I like that. That's neat.
And I keep my like birthing record spreadsheet in my phone, so anytime they need to know a birth date, I'm ready. I'm on point.
Well, it's like I keep them on an index card, but so I used to, send the feed card, out when I would send the snake.
Yeah, they don't care about that really. I don't.
Well, in my point, and you say, you put the last feed date on there. That's really all you need. You know what I mean? Yeah. You don't need 3 months ago that it ate a pinky. That doesn't matter. But I don't send those anymore because now it's part of our process here that card is what then tells me double check to make sure it's out of the inventory, out of the system, make sure that it's off Morph Market, off Show Me Marketplace. I got to take those down. And so that card is my signal, and it's actually part of my daily routine to move all those, off of the various platforms. That's and good. So I don't send that out anymore. And now it surprises me how often I get asked. And so it's like, if you ask me that day or maybe the next day, I can answer you. But when it's 3 weeks later, hey, what's the
you don't keep a master spreadsheet of every snake you've ever bred for years?
Did you not hear earlier? We've already sold over 400 babies.
It doesn't matter. I bet TSK knows every snake's poop that ever happened for the last 20 years. Think about that data. It's pretty good.
No. It's hard enough for me to remember last time I pooped. I don't have this kind of record.
Well, would you? So I like Husbandry Pro and did use it, but I never uploaded baby colubrids because the number is a lot, and they're very redundant, and they all usually eat fine. And I'll like do a clip system for refusals or ones that need live or whatever. But would you do it as a store and have, because like Husbandry Pro, they can take like the backend data and populate a website automatically for you. So it doesn't actually have to be uploaded anywhere.
So the reason that if I was just a store, but understand we're not just a store, we're a breeding facility. So it's as a pet store may have 60 animals. And that's very manageable to be able to put that in there and load up. But with the number of breeders, that we're doing, I really would love, like I've even talked to Darian at Warfare. He's pushed it whenever they were first launching their tracking system. That because I would love for Steve to be able to just take his phone, hit a scan a QR code on a rack and check all fed, or hit that button, it marks all, and then he undoes the 6 that didn't eat that day. And so he's able to keep it, but that's how we would have to do it.
Well, that's how Husbandry Pro does it.
Right. I'm saying, but the problem is the amount of time it would take to load all of these in the initial step. That's what's held us back. Using it afterwards would be glorious. We just haven't had the time to load up this many animals by room, by rack, by cage system.
I never use the by rack feature because I want the ability to be like, okay, these 10 are giving me a hard time, so we're going to move them over here to the next 5 weeks to be like focused frozen thawed feeding training session time over here. But they were originally listed in their like numerical clutch order. So I never used that. So I would just query by like every corn snake baby because my number system starts with like a species name, like a species name abbreviation. So I could be like Goot and then bulk feed all of them, excluding the ones that did not. That's how I did it because I can't be tied down to rack locations. Come on, man.
See, now what we do is we have an ID system that it stays in numerical order. Now the alpha prefix will change based on where these animals, come from, whether they were produced in-house, whether they were, eventually brought in and once they clear quarantine. But the clutch number is what they are in order of and throughout an entire, because we ended up, I think we were on clutch 190 something.
Do you reset clutch number per year or use it?
Yes, because then the first number is the year, then the clutch number. And so they're in order by the clutch number and then by, the number.
But you mix clutch numbers between species?
Correct. Because with the number of species we work with, we can't keep all this rack has corns, all this rack has.
Oh, yeah, I don't do that either, but I still I have like a, like Goot, Dione, Climax, whatever. Year. Yeah. Clutch number, animal number in the clutch.
For us, it's like MZC is Metazotics Colubrids.
Oh, and then so you have it production source.
Yes, then MZP Metazotics Pythons, MZB Metazotics Beardies, things like that. So then it goes within the year, the clutch, and the number within the clutch, and then MF on the end for male or female. So what we do is, like you were saying, you shift over the ones that are problematic, that need something.
Yeah, I'll pull them in like special needs them, or like if you're getting ready to ship a bunch, you can't feed or something, and you
those get moved.
Physically move them so you're not stupid.
Yes,
because I'm stupid around thinking number 200 or whatever, and I'm just like,
yeah. The moment that something is sold, it gets marked and it does get moved. Because we always know to check, are these shipping this week? If not, they get fed. If they are, they don't get fed.
Yeah.
But in the collection, because they have bigger, whether it's a rack system or caging, we have color-coded hang tags that tell us, like, for example, Steve has one color that tells him this is a live feeder. This won't take frozen thawed, so he knows, this is more than likely what you got to feed. We have some that are 2 a week. Maybe they were looking thin. Maybe, they laid eggs, whatever, but he's got some that mark, they get fed twice a week. If there's any medical treatments that are taking place, there's a color code for that. So it's, we have those. And then as far as in the nursery, since you're dealing with smaller tubs, you can't have a bunch of things hanging from them because they get in the way of the tubs below it and all that. So instead, what we'll do is it's the placement of the index card. How we turn it, whether it's facing up, over, all that tells us what's going on. That tells us where we stopped. It's a whole, it's
actually its own science. Like the ability to look at a room full of animals and know the maximum amount of information in the smallest amount of space and have everybody communicate to each other equally. So it doesn't really, if it works, it works, but I'm always like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
Because I don't log feeds or whatever particularly, but I do like having like lineages. But I do literally just have a spreadsheet that's mine that I possess forever that has every animal I've ever bred. So if someone's like 3 years later, you sold a snake to me here, I can at least, if I shipped it, I'll know exactly who got it. But if I sold it at a show, it'll be like, Odessa, March 2022, and then I can tell you their birthday because you're going to ask.
Yeah. No. Nope. No.
Yeah.
Way too many. I keep track of a lot of things. I enjoy my trends. I enjoy my data analysis, but keeping that in depth, I can't. I mean,
why do you do it by month, by the way?
As far as the numbers on,
I do it by day.
On Morph Market?
Yes.
Oh, see, I don't have time for that either. And really,
because it's actually really granular. Like people will sell down on weekends and at shows, list them as on sale and slowly add up. So you can watch their behavior over a week.
I think it comes from my history now of, so, not only was I in the retail segment for 20 years, I was used to a view at 10,000 feet, meaning I was operating 16 to 20 stores at a time. And so while there are times I'd really get down into the super detailed analysis because it would tell me things I needed, being able to look at it from a higher level is what it helped me predict things in a different way. So for me, a month view, and really honestly, then you look at,
like, you don't have to analyze it every day.
No.
Saying, like, taking the data every day, you can watch human nature unfold.
Same thing. It's whenever you do it over the course of a year and then get to compare it year over year, you start seeing complete patterns and trends. And so, I mean, with any data set, the longer you have it, the better it is. So I just found that for what I'm utilizing it for, a month to month it shows me what I need.
Yeah, there's less change over time in all colubrid categories than ball pythons in general, because ball pythons are a large part of the market. But watching ball pythons is the most fun because they have enough units sold per time that you actually like test things.
Yeah,
Like there's no significant difference between the price of red stripe before and after the Pompeii reveal clutch, for example. It isn't significant. And everyone says it is. And they still say it every day. And I'm like,
no, it ain't.
Hello. Yeah. It might be in your head, like a red stripe clown is, but the base morph red stripe did not change. But you know what did? Desert Ghost. Like there's a significant difference before and after.
That one, there was something
chose to make it $1,000 one day. And I was like, you little stinker.
There was something that came out previous, and I can't remember what it was now, that made chocolate jump up for a little bit. So you'll see. There you go. So you'll see these different things that'll make it.
But people say stuff. There's like hobby knowledge and then actual facts, and facts don't care about your feelings. And it's
amen, sister. Amen.
They're like, yeah, nobody buys whatever they say they think is true, but none of them ever check.
Well, and I often say that so much information that you get, whether it's about market or even about care, it's not experienced information, it's regurgitated information. They heard it somewhere else, and so then they just repeat it. And it becomes repeated.
Like you'd have to just teach them that anecdotes are a stepping stone, but they're not like the final. It's like teaching somebody to believe that science is real, which is obviously a controversial topic right now. So,
well, it's also, when you hear the
science anymore, it's canceled.
When you hear the phrase "do your own research," and really what that technically means to most is
go read 5 other weird dudes anecdotes about
somebody who agrees with you. You know what I mean? That's what you're doing. So, yeah,
right. But I think people don't know what research is.
I don't think they know
how to identify like good and bad sources, bias. Half this hobby's biased about half of the things they say and do at all possible times because of all kinds of reasons. My favorite one is like survivorship bias, because everyone's like, this is how you succeed. And I'm like, that's how you succeeded. It's not how most people can succeed, because like you just won. You succeeded, maybe even by accident. But that's maybe not a great business plan to be given to each individual baby breeder because most of them fail at it. It's so weird. I'm sorry, I'm just getting hot because that's the one that kills me because they're like, "There's the only way to be #1 ball python breeders to do this." I'm like, that's the way you did it.
So you know what? I'll tell you, when it comes to breeding ball pythons, I'll tell you advice I gave to an up and coming breeder who I know listens to your show because she was the first person to ever mention it to me. So what I told her was there were a few things about her personally, and I don't really want to go too far into it, that made her stand out as an individual in this hobby. Okay. And I said, when you look at ball pythons, there's very little when it comes to just the animal that will make you stand out in the hobby. And what I mean by that is we all say we want to be known for our quality. Well, you know what? It can only get so good. You know, you can't.
Right. And also they don't care about quality. Really. The market doesn't actually if there is a quality that you could distinguish and prove to someone, the market has proven unequivocally that they do not care and do not value it. They're just like, okay, that's cool. Like,
we still have
the match, like, because they're so freaking fungible. It's stupid. It's like the most fungible snake we have. No one cares. It must match sort of within the bell curve of all the prices, like pretty close, like one standard deviation. Otherwise, they cry about it.
Yeah. So you're not going to be known as.
Now I'm getting hot. Y'all got me hot.
Well, yeah, that's good. That's good.
I'm gonna start dropping F-bombs here.
We're proud of you for not.
I've been trying keeping them in deep down. Like I do my song reports on the Member Live now because a lot of people can't handle it. They're very sensitive. That like the emperor has no clothes, and like the market moves because it's so big, especially the ball python one, with or without you. It does what it wants. It has a will of its own. It's just doing whatever, and it's partially individual decisions. But there's so many people. It's larger than that. And like you could lament and gnash your teeth and pull out your hair about how you think your animals are worth X. It literally doesn't matter because the market determines it, not you. And you can sort of be like 2 standard deviations away from the mean because you're like, I have quality, but you can't be that far because they won't buy it.
Yeah. And you know, what I ended up telling, you know, my advice to her was you can be known for having good animals, but in the ball python market, you're really not going to be known for having the top quality because there are so many breeders that do have good quality that it's, you know, you're just lost in.
What does it mean, quality, in this
Bingo.
context?
Well, so there's the one, you know, you're not going to be able to fight that. It's almost like so many companies that say they want to be known for customer service. But if you think about it, there's like Chick-fil-A is known for customer service, but there's not many that's what you know them for. Is how great their customer service is.
I wish they wouldn't abuse the people in the cow suit. That's what I would pay extra that the person did not have to be in the cow suit. I always ask them, like, are you okay? Are you trafficked? and I'm like, shake yes if you're okay. And they're like, yeah. And I'm like, okay, good. But if you're not, I'll fight for you, cow. It's so hot in there.
The other thing is if you know, to be known in the ball python, you know, world, you have to be kind of cutting edge on the combos that you're producing or, you know, having the new ones, which if you're an up and coming breeder, it's hard to really break into that ahead of some of the bigger, you know, individuals that are already playing that game. Or you're going to invest a whole lot of money to get as caught up to speed as possible to be known for that. So instead, if you want to make any type of, and I don't even want to call it waves, if you just want to have somewhat success in that particular arena, it has to be you.
Yeah, most of the ball python hobby is cults of personality because a lot of the animals are largely the same kind of animals or whatever. But like people want to have faith that you'll be there, that you'll maybe talk to them, that you have a good plan for their success as they invest a lot of money, and they want to know that it's okay. And it's like a way to, it's a good business or whatever. And in some ways it is because it's an extremely high margin if you do it right. But you're right. And some people, you know, got that West Virginia master's degree personality.
Well, it's you have to be memorable. You know what I mean? It's you have to. You have to be people are going to have to want to recognize you. Like when they come up, yes, they want to see what you have on the table, but they want to see you as much as they want to see what you have on the table in that particular arena. That's what it, and you know, and it spreads to others as well, where one of the things that we talk to anyone who comes on board here at Metazotics, that wherever your Colubrid game is right now, it's got to be stepped up. It's going to you're going to have to study more. We're going to give you the tools. We're going to work with you. But if you are ever working a show at a Metazotics table, it comes with a level of expectation that you know your Colubrid.
You know, they think we're not cool for that, right?
Psh, they can think whatever they want.
Well, there's a certain amount of like a douchebag hipster vibe from being like, you have to speak the right shibboleths at the right time in order to be cool. You know what I mean? There's a lot of like just strictly ball python people like, y'all are shitty and elitist, and I'm like, yeah, maybe you're right.
You know, it's. I think that there's certainly those out there that are. We can't deny that. You know what I mean? There are going to be those that carry that.
I think like the problem is like just using scientific names for stuff becomes elitist on accident. And is that fair to people who use it?
Let me throw something in here, though, because I've been listening a lot and enjoying the conversation. I've heard the shitty and elitist comment about Colubrid keepers, and I don't know if it necessarily makes us shitty or elitist. I just think that it basically, a lot of people that keep Colubrids, especially people that want like a diverse species array, we're attracted to the diversity because we probably are more nerdy than the average ball python keeper. And I'm not talking about people that have one or two ball pythons. I can give the ball python, I can give the Colubrid perspective of ball python breeders right now, because I didn't know what a ball python bro was. I'd heard that before, never really experienced it. And then the year that the book came out and I had to sign the book at Russ's table at Tinley. And I'm trying to be careful how I say what I'm about to say. I am not talking bad on people that like hobby keep ball pythons, but when I see a guy that's like jacked up on wearing shirts that are far too tight, just waving around his wad of money, and that's what's important to him, I got a problem with that. We lost Jessica, by the way.
She has
I just didn't like that. And it was in that moment that I realized there might be some tribes here. There could potentially be, you know, some Colubrid keeper. There could be a portion of Colubrid keepers that probably aren't going to vibe well with ball python bros. But I don't know if that's a bad thing. I just think it's just two different demographics within a population. That's all.
Well, I think you'll have it on both sides too. I mean, because if you honestly, I remember really feeling looked down upon as a Colubrid keeper when the ball python market was really skyrocketing. It's like, oh, well, what morphs do you keep? Well, I have this and this, but I also keep, and you start naming Colubrids, and they're like, oh, you know what I mean? There was no interest. And it's like, okay. Now, also understand this. Personally, when I walk around Tinley, there are Colubrid breeders I'm walking up and giving hugs to. There are ball python breeders I'm walking up and giving hugs to. There are, so I mean, there's going to be a lot that I can't remember his name. I know his company's like Muscles and Geeks, something like that. Real big, stocky guy. Do you know who I'm talking about? I can't remember his name, but he's always set up right across the aisle from me in Tinley, and he's nothing but ball pythons. That's all he keeps and all he's kept. He comes to my table multiple times every show because he loves what he sees. And I mean, we get to talk about that, and I go look at his balls, and I mean, my point is it's all about how individuals are treating each other.
Sure.
And like, you know, I may not be super excited about ball pythons, but I'll tell you two things. One, there are times I see one that I'm like, oh man, this looks really cool. And I have a whole room of ball pythons. So everybody, you know, is aware of that. But I also still love the passion that I can hear from an individual who is loving what they're doing with them. and that's great. But I think that you have Colubrid elitist, you have ball python breeders that think there's, those are worms. I've got a big fat snake, over here. So it's both sides. I think it's human nature to have pricks in anything you do. It's human nature to have some awesome people in anything you do. And you're going to have the gamut on both sides, and both are going to blame the other for being problematic.
That's why everybody loves you, Clint, because you love everybody.
Not necessarily. But
there's not a percentage you love everybody. But introverted nerd here doesn't necessarily love everybody. And I can just say, I mean, those people that saw me at that Tinley, you even called me out on. I looked absolutely miserable there was just too many freaking people. Like my customer service face went to absolute hell in a handbasket. But I just remember thinking like, whoa, this is different. But I'm not, for the record, I am not whitewashing all ball python breeder. I'm talking about a specific sect, if you will. But I could totally see that sect turning around and looking at, my nerd bucket ass, who I love Brazilian snakes. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't think that my favorite snake in this room right now is brown. And no one else cares for this thing. It's the brown musarana. But I read 22 freaking journal articles and wrote a chapter of a book about it, and I can't get enough of them. And I know if I breed them, there are maybe 3 people on planet Earth that care, and maybe one of them is in the United States. So I'm going to get a bunch of rustica that I'm going to raise up, and they'll be my rustica, and that's the way it's going to be. But I think that's fine, though. I don't know. That's my
right. But there's a ball python person right now that likes a morph that's worth $20, and is like, I don't care. I'm going to breed it because I love it. So like there's more similarities between all of us than differences. And a lot of times it's arbitrary and language based.
Yes.
I'm always like, they just like snakes too, or lizards or frogs or whatever. We're all the same people largely. And a lot of the like trends and morphs that are sort of silly also happen in rare species where people are like, it's an investment to go buy this rare species. I'm like, hello, it's not that hard to breed them. And so the morphs, the whole species crashes just like a morph does. So it's like, it's not a perfect 1-to-1, but we're all the same people, honestly. Keeping snakes in boxes.
Oh, no.
No, I think that's,
I just think sometimes like very coherent adults that are nice and keep their ball pythons very well sometimes feel maybe unintentionally excluded. And they're like, well, I guess I shouldn't even learn this because the discourse is couched in a way that to prove that you're cool enough to talk about it, and they're like functional adults with money that they could buy snakes.
I don't know, I just like my brown snakes.
Okay, good. That's good.
That's like reptiles. I mean, it's across the gamut. I think that sometimes I don't mean this is like defending us, but I think that, here we are on, Colubrid and Colubroid radio. So we obviously have a direction that we go. We talk about how much we enjoy them. And I think that sometimes because of that it gives us a label of we don't like other things, or we're anti this or anti that. And I think that's the same thing that, I'm saying happens to us. I think that happens to ball python breeders too. I think they get labeled as just, you don't know anything because you only work with one species, or you don't, what I mean? It's so many.
To be fair, some of them are intellectually incurious and it
you're absolutely right.
But a lot of them are not. That's why every species podcast should be multi-species podcast. Because then you like, the only way to convince someone who just doesn't know yet, who is truly ignorant of something, is to come at them where they are, which is ball python, is cool color, and explain that there's a colubrid with a similar project or idea or aesthetic, and be like, this is also cool color. Yeah. And they're like, okay. And they'll just learn.
To that point right there, that was one of the things I remember saying about the first Colubrid Fest. And when we were really talking about everyone that should come, I remember pointing that out to the listeners, that do not look at this as excluding people that enjoy geckos or people that enjoy ball pythons or people that enjoy frogs. That's not what this is. This is a celebration of colubrids. It's going to be a gathering of people who enjoy them. And I hope that if you have friends that are into reptiles that maybe they haven't really been into colubrids, get them to come with you so that they can see why you enjoy them so much. And, you know, it goes right to your point, Jessica, where it's simply helping to introduce people to other items. And, you know, I say it many times on how grateful I am that the ball python market has done what it has, because if it hadn't, so much of what exists in our hobby would not be there if ball python money hadn't been dumped into it to make that happen. You know, and it's caused some negative things along the way too. We know that. I mean, it's whenever you hear of someone's collection of 60 animals was, you know, suddenly left and found deteriorated, and it's usually 60 ball pythons that, you know, have it. Because like you said earlier, when we have, you know, an individual who, oh, I like this, and they suddenly amass a collection of 60 snakes in 3 months because they can, you know, it's usually that's
there is like problems of like, does saturation beget certain behaviors in people? And it sure does, because if it's that easy to buy that many for that cheaply, then it will make people hoard and not be prepared. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of hypothetical problems, but maybe those problems existed 25 years ago with Burmese pythons. You know, it was very easy and very cheap to get lots of Burmese pythons that were captive bred albinos, greens, labs. I would way rather have somebody buy 50 ball pythons than 50 Burmese pythons.
Oh, 100% than 10. I'd rather buy 50. Yeah.
I'm going to go to the county fair and get 10 iguanas. And
look, I got my
28 goldfish. And some red ear sliders are in little bags. And so we have improved materially, but we can still keep improving. But I think the divide between ball python people and everybody else is arbitrary and kind of silly. So
I think
that's why I like. Like I almost think you shouldn't exclude other species of snakes. You just should ask people to at least have some colubrids on their table and some of whatever else they breed, so they can contextualize. Like, hey, I breed Dumerals boas, and I breed whatever false water cobras, and then they're like, this is like this, like that. And I don't know, because like as a woman, I don't like being like, well, we didn't have a woman's only podcast. We're only talking to women. You need to be able to talk with everybody, including men, and have conversations and have them respect you. You don't need to have a safe space. You need to be in their space, and they need to be in your space. So I like that's where I'm kind of at. But you don't have to. It's your party. But if colubrids can't beat out other species when they go head to head in a show, they need to figure out how to present them in such a way that they do, which I'm struggling with. But here we are. It's more science. I don't know. More adults. That's where I am. But it's probably a cool party.
Well, I tell you, I think colubrids, you know, we're talking about beating out. They've, 6 points in the last year that they've now increased as far as market share from what we've monitored and what we studied. So we're seeing them continuing to grow.
I have an idea on that. Actually, and I never talk market, so here we go. Zac Loughman's market
update has been brought to you by West Liberty University
biology department. Anyway, I think what happened is, I think during COVID, a lot of people got trapped in their house and they went onto YouTube and they thought, I want a pet snake, and they looked, and if you just do basic Google searches, you try to find information on snakes, pet snakes, by sheer volume of information, you're going to get hit with ball python wave. And then you start looking online, because that's where people were buying, and the most available snake online were ball pythons when you inevitably get to the website. And the ball python breeders are better at marketing, so they're going to get that in front of that audience. And so in 2020, the surge of ball python owners.
You also had,
and you get that money, which enabled you to go get maybe a couple ball pythons. But now the ball pythons did what ball pythons do, which is they put the hook in the person. Now, X percentage of those individuals got out of herpetoculture after a year. But a fair number of them stayed in herpetoculture. They were keeping the ball python. And then they realized, like, hey, I like snakes. Let's look at other snakes. And then they start looking at other snakes and realize there's corn snakes, hognose snakes, rainbow boas, boas. And they slowly but surely fed our market. But it wasn't like that giant horde of humanity. It was maybe 10 to 30% of those newcomers in 2020. And now they're diversifying and they've stuck. Like, they're not going away. And that might be why we have the corn snakes and the hogs going up. That's a contributing factor. I don't think it's the reason. But I think that literal global event is what's in a weird way contributed to the colubrids kind of doing, like, colubrids. I pay attention to your market update because I'm there for every one of them. And it just seems like they're just slowly but surely increasing. Like, it's a tortoise. Like, there isn't this oscillation. No, it's kind of a net gain. Even though there's a pattern where sales are high in this season and they're low in that season, it's still increasing. And I think that's just because of a maturation effect. And that makes me sound like an egotistical asshole when I say that out loud, but not necessarily a maturation effect, but rather I've done the thing with ball pythons. I want to get into something else. And then the price point for a lot of colubrids isn't really that horrible, which you've just got done saying, Jessica. So am I going to get into rainbow boas or am I going to get into black rat snakes, which are about the same size and have morphs and eat, rats? I don't know. That's my.
I think some people do that, but I think way less people are doing that than both of you seem to think. Like, I think people are chasing hognoses to have another investment species.
Oh no, I think that's part of it too.
I've said hognoses are the ball pythons.
They're not chasing their way into corn snakes, that's for sure.
But I'm just talking about like Colubrid Fest. Like, we never thought that we would get as many people to Colubrid Fest as we did.
Okay, that's good. Well, maybe it is good, but I want. And I don't know. I'm like a little bit autistic about fairness. Okay, so like I would like colubrids to like back in the day. There was like they were very equal. They were like, oh, yes, colubrid table, bows, and like they could fight. They could be competitive everywhere they went. And in some show circuits, they're like quite competitive in those shows. But in a lot of show circuits, they're still not competitive, just on like a visual basis.
And I think can you explain? By competitive, what do you
just
mean?
Mean like number of units sold per show. They still aren't to me. No, I can bring 100 corn snakes to a show and 100 ball pythons to sell way more ball pythons. Well, now, and I'm the same person selling both with the same sort of.
But you're also hitting a lot of pet keepers that are at the show.
Right. They still don't want colubrids, in my opinion.
You look at a little worm corn snake, you look at a robust ball python, and you're a soccer mom, if we can still say that. And I don't want to. I mean, I know as a parent, if I was getting Colin a snake, guess what snakes I got him? He's got 2 pastel ball pythons. My ball pythons right above my head. Like that.
So I just don't. I think so. Like, there were a lot of colubrid projects that went up extraordinarily in price during COVID too. So people were getting in equal numbers across the market, maybe slightly more in ball pythons, but they were more like small business, side business minded than they were in other ones. Like, if you look at the plant market, everything's, and so like now that the water's receding as ball python people leave, it's just sort of showing these like atolls of like colubrid interest or whatever that are already there at their sort of natural rate. And the increased number of hognose inventory online, to me, it's just a reflection of the higher price point, because most people don't post all of their low end stuff online anyway, because it's on shipping, something that's $100 most of the time. And like the investment money is moving to hognoses, because the corn snake number is fairly. It's not stable throughout the year. It goes up and down by like $500, but I don't put all my corn snake inventory on more market. I dribble 10 at a time as they sell down, because I don't want to field 400 questions from corn snake people.
So there's one other angle I want to mention, from the point that you're making.
I got a graph for you if you want it.
Shoot it. I love graphs and numbers. Trust me. It drives me to really focus. So the 2 species that you're talking about right now, corn snakes and hognose. Now, as far as overall units sold at a show, you're absolutely right. Ball pythons continue to outpace colubrids, but part of that is also what's available. When 85% of the individuals, 85% of the tables at a show have ball pythons on it, that's, you've
But what
got
about
a
at
big
my
spread.
table? If I bring
Well, okay,
100
hold on,
baby
hold
corn
on.
snakes and 60 ball pythons will be
You're
corn
talking
snakes.
about one species. You're talking about corn snakes, which is the species that has been out and more available in
Right,
the
it is
reptile
the,
hobby
the,
than any
you know,
others. Yes, that was the first big reptile species out there. So as someone who does sell a ton of colubrids, I will say corn. Now I'm going to say this with a caveat. So corn snakes probably do the poorest for me. I
mhm.
do not work with a lot of high-end morphs. So I want to
Mhm.
put that out there. So I don't have a lot of the corns that, those who are looking for certain projects are after. So I want to premise it by saying that. I also sell very, very few hognose because I put out very, very few hognose. Because in my opinion, whenever I'm setting my table, the three species that I don't tend to want to compete with are ball
Right.
pythons, hognose, and corn snakes.
Mhm.
I do very well at every show I go to. And I don't mean that as egotistical, arrogant. I do well because of how long I've been doing it and following.
Mhm.
Why do I want to put what's already flooded out there? Where instead, when I'm putting out gray-banded king snakes, when I'm putting out Russian rat snakes, when I'm putting out the bamboos, when I'm putting out, various species that, while I don't want to call them rare by any means, they're not as commonly found at the shows, or if so, one other table may have them. And
yeah, but like
because of that,
if you bring
I do
5
well.
gray bands to a show where they're not really native, so they actually care about them there,
Mhm.
like, and you sell 2 or 3, the still the market, but you sold 2 or 3 of 30 different species. You sold a lot of units, very good, and usually the price point's good because they're rarer.
Mhm.
But still the total penetration of ball python sales will be more if you brought an equal number because they're fatter and cuter. And only the coolest people know that a gray band king snake should be cared about and appreciated. So far,
If
for
I
now,
bring the same number of ball pythons as I do the colubrids, I will sell significantly less.
less colubrids,
No, significantly less units because
total units.
correct.
Is because they assume you're going to have colubrids, and so your customers are just satisfied.
I'm known for that. No, I'm known for
yeah,
colubrids.
right.
That's for sure. No, what I'm saying is if I bring ball pythons,
Mhm.
I will, if I replace the colubrids with ball pythons, I'm going to sell fewer units because at that point the table becomes another face in the crowd.
Sure.
And so with that much, the same number of ball pythons are going to sell out of that building.
Sure.
But
Yes.
now only maybe 5 off my table compared to the 15, 20 colubrids.
Okay, well then I think we agree, because I don't know if the colubrid market as a whole is way bigger now than it was. It's just like a relative percent change that makes it seem bigger to you based on how you sell.
It's 6 points bigger as far as the overall market share is what it was a year ago.
Well,
That's
6 points of more inventory online unsold. Either that means more were listed or less were sold.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean more are being bred and bought. Darien, Secret Beautiful Darien, has the time on market and units marked to sold, which he releases sometimes. That would be the way we would know this, not the amount of available inventory.
Correct. But the getting a hold of that on a monthly basis isn't going to happen, which is
no,
also,
I wish he would. I would pay $10 a month. Easy.
I know. I would like that as well.
Give me the blue check mark, the one where I pay to see the back.
Right. Well, and I've talked to him before. In short, the reason that won't come out is because whenever you have the natural downturns that happen throughout the seasons, where you have certain months where less is being sold, it will then cause a panic for those that don't understand the natural trends.
People just need to know that it's a shoulder season business.
Oh, good luck.
Here's my ball python population by day. So this is our peak last year, trough over the summer, peak this year. Because of the weather, we delayed our really fast decrease. But it happened eventually because it always does. We sell 200 units a day some days. So it's a lot. And that includes putting it back on. But the hognose amount is going up, like you say. And I don't think that's a good thing. That means we're not hypothetically, we could be not selling as many, but
Mhm.
making just as much. So I don't know if it's good that the market share is going up because that means there may be in less demand. We would need to know units marked as sold, in my opinion. You can turn off my dumb
I
graph
understand
now.
that's I understand your argument completely.
Right. The corn snake
agree.
number is like quite seasonal and flat and gentle. And it doesn't go up that much because corn snake breeders know they just shouldn't do that. They shouldn't put up an infinite amount of corn snakes, and they take a lot of them to shows. And it's peace and love.
Peace and love.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Did we learn anything? I don't think we did.
I think we did.
I'll tell you what, I've loved this episode personally. I've loved this conversation.
Well, when a lady shares a graph with you, that's when you know.
Ooh. I got all tingly.
Aren't you both married?
Yeah. We can do like platonic graph.
That's right.
pitching at
That's
some
like,
point.
are you and Jessica talking about graphs again?
Wow. I thought I was
I'm
the nerd.
blushing. I might be hot in here.
All right.
Yeah.
Look at that curve.
Sorry, Zach. Do you want to talk about a salamander real quick? Make you
I'm
feel
good.
better?
No, this is good. I like this. This is fun. Okay. Well, we didn't even get to talk about your oddballs, so I guess we have to have you back on.
I like Japanese rat snakes. Goodbye.
I love
Me
Japanese
too.
rat snakes too. They're my favorite rat snake.
I love them because they're like a black rat snake in almost every property, but they're blue.
Yeah.
And they're smaller.
Yeah, well, like I have a big one though. Mine's like, well, I mean, like they're not like 9 feet, like the gigantic
no,
black
they're
rat
not like
snakes,
an
but like
8-foot
your
monster.
average what
Mhm.
you're seeing. That's what they
Nice.
remind me of. But they come in a cool color, and they're from
Yep.
Japan, so there's like a little mystique, and they have these big, sort of small clutch number eggs, so you can't really like crash the market.
Babies are easy.
Yeah, and they just slowly turn blue, like a fine wine. It's like a magic. It's magic, right?
And the
Yes.
chill.
Oh,
You know?
Max with the pictures.
Nice.
Oh,
Max is still hanging out.
yeah.
He's a prize. Give
He's
him a
always
tip.
there. All righty. Well, we will definitely have you back on. Are you willing to come back on?
Yeah, if you're willing to have me. I'm a little
Oh,
contrarian.
absolutely.
We like that, though.
Oh, no.
We
So
actually really appreciate
right.
it.
Absolutely.
Oh, thank God.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It keeps it interesting.
Well, a lot of people think I'm, a little bit of a bitch. I don't care, right? I'm old. I've been through a lot. I've watched all my boas die, scrape their carcasses off the cage and throw it in the pit in the back. Okay, it's time to stop worrying about that and let's worry about like getting things done. So I don't really care anymore.
It's fair.
Right.
Totally fair.
You know?
So, what's the name of your podcast and where can people
It's the
find it?
Pullback Rack podcast. It's a multi-species podcast, and I like it like that because I think we all are cool people, and I have very strong language warnings. Very strong.
You did a great
Also-
job.
Yeah, we're
Thank
proud
you.
of you, Jessica.
Sometimes I'm like, I should be an adjunct teacher, and then I'm like, nope. Actually, no. Whoopsie.
Mhm.
And then Hair Hole Farm on Instagram. I post lots of pictures of stuff for fun. And sometimes I do like dumb science episodes. Like I did one on if we're making frog actually gay. I usually try to make them funny.
That's a good one.
The frogs are
Interesting.
actually gay all along.
Mhm. Well, on that note, thanks for coming on. We had
Thank
a great
you.
time. And we will definitely have you back on in the future. So there we go.
Sure. Have fun
All right.
at whatever you're doing. That's fun.
Yes.
It's springtime. I have to go like feed. It's late at
Yeah.
night though.
Mhm. All right, Clint, where can people find you?
You can obviously find everything we have available at Metazotics.com. You can find me on Facebook, Clint Bartley, or Metazotics on Instagram, MetazoticsLLC.
All righty. Me, Dr. Crawdad on Instagram, Zac Loughman on Facebook. If you want to do grad school in a happy environment where you will not be brutalized, consider West Liberty
Yes.
University. So there's that. If you want to do undergrad and work with a bunch of animals while you're getting undergrad, we got 400 plus on campus, including a 7-foot water monitor, 4 tegus, a smooth fronted caiman. Those are the ones I can think of right now. I got to work with that caiman, by the way. He's pretty spicy. So with that being said, be it afternoon, morning, evening, or night, whatever time of day it is, have a good one. And we'll see you on the next episode of Colubrid and Colubroid Radio.